This week we're going to be working on our literature analysis on All Quiet on the Western Front. So I want to give you a little bit of instruction on how this takes place and what you're going to be doing with this. So what is a literary analysis? A literary analysis is a form of a paper with the objective to analyze and break down a piece of literature. It's not simply a summary of a book or a story, but it's meant to examine and evaluate the literature. So things to ask yourself, in particular, I want you guys looking at what the author attempts to convey in terms of themes. And as we've been talking about in All Quiet on the Western Front, we've looked at the futility of war and what it means to engage a war that you really don't have any feeling for yourself. You're doing it because you've been told to do it. The author, what examples does the author employ to convey mood, theme, characterization? In essence, you're getting at what is beneath the text, not just the surface of the text, but what actually lies beneath. So if you think back to your weekly questions that we use for discussion, and think back to your connections to deeper meanings. Think back to your quotes. These are the things that are going to put you beneath the surface of the text. What significance, importance does the reader find in this work? In other words, why are you even required to read this? What is the meaning of it other than, I have to do it for a grade? But what's the purpose of understanding this text? So an author's purpose, when writing a literary analysis, you can go beyond the basic elements and you're going to apply them to other issues and categories. For example, you can look at it through psychology, politics, history. The literary analysis is going to focus on a combination of these different elements, and you're going to enhance your author's purpose through looking at these elements. In particular, we've been looking at All Quiet on the Western Front, the history behind World War I, the start, the Eastern and Western fronts, and then this week you had a video I did for you on the conclusion of the war. So when you're looking at it, you're looking at the broad idea up here of the author's purpose. And then you're examining the author's purpose through the ideas of theme, conflict, and characterization. So when you're analyzing theme, you're never analyzing just a general thematic idea in the book. You're looking how the author is going to convey themes using conflict, symbolism, diction, point of view, figurative language, irony. In particular, in this book, it's going to be figurative language, the use of imagery, the idea of conflict, and the irony of what's happening here during the battles. So we've got lots of different types of conflict. I know we've looked at these before. You've got the idea of man versus self, that internal, human versus society versus nature, people fighting against each other, human versus human. And so in this book, you're looking at a lot of the man versus man conflict because it is war, but also the idea of an internal conflict. What is my purpose? What am I doing? What is my meaning in life at this point? So author reveals characterization by looking at the thoughts that the character has. So as you're reading All Quiet on the Western Front, we become quite familiar with what Paul is thinking throughout the novel, the actions he takes, particularly in this last chapter with the death of the French soldier in the pit, and then the dialogue between characters, and there's quite a bit of dialogue between Paul and his school chums, and then the thoughts of others about this character. And so that is all going to come together on how we understand Paul and relate Paul to the overall theme of the futility of war. So when you're getting ready to get started, you've got to make sure you've read the text. There's no way you can do a true literary analysis by reading the spark notes or just a summary of the novel. You really need to get into the text and have read it. And I'm sure you all have done that already because we're in the third phase of this. And so I'm not as worried about that. But now at this point, you've got to decide what is the theme and the author's purpose. And as we've been talking, again and again and again, I can't say it enough, just the idea of futility of war. And so as you're going through the book, you can use the notes we've been taking all along for our discussions. What is showing you that Remarque in this novel feels that war is futile, that it is absolutely useless, that it has in essence ruined a generation of young men. And so you can use those notes to help support your idea, because the big thing here is having specific support, for your theme. So what you're going to be doing is you're going, if you're discussing the character, you're going to be grouping it under dialogue, setting, symbolism. If you're looking at the story, you're going to look how it's creating a climate of fear that can turn into anarchy. So you're going to group your information in that way. If you're looking at characterization, you can look at diction, discrimination, conflict, and you'll group in that way as well. So you can study the different character categories and decide and look for relationships between them. And then how do these relationships reveal the information about the theme of this work? So this idea all comes together in your thesis statement, and that's what's going to be due on Tuesday this week, is that thesis statement. You'll submit that to me. I'll take a look at them, make comments, suggested changes, send those back so that you can finish your rough draft. So your rough draft is actually going to be due on Sunday. And what you're going to be doing is the rough draft, while a literature analysis is not a summary of the story, you do need to put a summary in your introduction so that the reader has an idea of what is going on in your story. So your introduction is going to give your theme of the story and a summary, brief summary of what has happened, transpired in the book. So then in each body paragraph, your job is to prove that thesis. Remember, you are not an expert in this area. You don't have your doctorate in this. And so your job is to support each and every one of your opinions with information that you have found in the literature. So you're going to be being sure to cite specific examples using MLA format. That video on that instruction on how to do that was posted last week. So make sure you are using that. And all of this, the whole job, you're arguing like a lawyer. Think of it in terms like that. A lawyer who's presenting his case in court in front of everyone. Your job is to prove your thesis is correct. And so you're going to be citing examples throughout for that. So in conclusion, you should be able to define what a literary analysis is, be able to find the author's purpose and analyze the theme, conflict, other parts, organize your paper, and complete the drafting process. So I will do another video that's going through what are the requirements for this paper specifically for your rubric for grading, and we will see you on Friday.